very, very uplifting, insightful, and intellectual discourse on the question of, for morality's sake, should we be supporting the state of Israel? At the table right now, we have two very well-known personalities in our community. We have Rabbi Daniel Korobkin. Joe, a little clapping, please. Rabbi Daniel Korobkin is the senior rabbi of the Bayit, which is Canada's largest Orthodox synagogue. Rabbi Korobkin is also one of the leading voices of modern Orthodoxy in North America. Rabbi Korobkin, in his short term here, has met with the senior leadership of the Catholic Church, of the evangelical movement, and has been a voice in terms of moderation and reaching out to all facets of the community. Rabbi Korobkin not only talks the talk, but he walks the walk, especially when it comes to building achdus in our community. And right now we have our finalist panelists. Please come up, Donna. I want to say one more word about Rabbi Korobkin, and that is that he is a tremendous, tremendous lover of Israel, and he also accompanied the Prime Minister on the trip, the historic trip to Israel. We then have Adrienne Gold, very, very well. Yeah, you can clap. You can clap. Yes, sir. Very well-known TV personality, popular lecturer across North America, senior lecturer at the Village Shul, community liaison for the Village Shul, and now she's undertaken a new major challenge, I understand, a leadership role in the JWRP, which is the Jewish Women's Renaissance Project, which will empower women to change the world through Jewish values, transforming themselves, their families, and our communities, I should say, our communities. Donna Holbrook is the one person that never has to be introduced formally at a Jewish meeting. She has been to more Jewish meetings than all of you, except Linda. But the rest of us, she's there. Every rally, every demonstration, every pro-Israel manifestation, Donna is in the front line. Donna was there when we first brought in the merchants from Israel, when they couldn't make a living because of the Intifada. Donna has been what you call mamish with a friend of our people. She's the National Executive Director of the International Christian Embassy for Israel, Canada. She's a voice of reason. She's well known in the circles in Ottawa. And it's always been a pleasure, and I've had, I think it's 20 years of working together. So you can always count on Donna. The way I think we're going to organize ourselves is if we ask the speakers to deliver a short dissertation for about 10 minutes each, and then have a chance for them to question each other, and then open it up to the floor. So everyone gets a chance at a few words. We'll call on the senior rabbi to speak first, Rabbi Korobkin.
I feel somewhat less than gentlemanly to be speaking before the two ladies, but with your permission, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for this honor and opportunity to be able to share some ideas today. I do understand from the audience today that I am preaching to the choir almost quite literally, right? Yeah. And so if we talk about the moral imperative in Israel advocacy and speaking out and making sure that our voices are heard for Israel, I don't think that I have to make the argument that it's important. You already understand that, otherwise you wouldn't be here. It's really, I guess, words of chizuk, words of strengthening ourselves and reinforcing why, reminding ourselves why this is so important. And I'm going to be taking a religious perspective. That's what I do for a living. I'm a rabbi. Yeah, you noticed. And so I'm going to just be citing for you some religious sources as to why Jews have this sense of responsibility, especially for the state of Israel, for both Medinat Yisrael, for Eretz Yisrael, and for Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel that are living in the land of Israel. The prophet Isaiah in chapter 62 said, L'man Sion lo echeshe, u'leman Yerushalayim lo eshkot. He said, for Zion's sake I will not keep silent. For Jerusalem's sake I will not remain quiet, till her vindication shines out like the dawn, her salvation like a blazing torch. We're supposed to take our cue from the prophet Isaiah. He could not stand by if he saw injustice, if he saw something awry in the heart of his people, in the land of his people and in the nation of his people. And just because of limitations in time, I think what I'd like to do is just break down the ideas that I want to present, both from a past, present, and future perspective. We have to advocate and we have to be strong in our passion and in our outspoken nature about Israel today because of our present. Number one, we know the principle that Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh. All of Israel have a communal responsibility for one another. For those of us in the audience that are Jews, this requires every single Jew to be mindful of the fact that I have a responsibility. I have a communal responsibility to make sure that every single Jew in the world is safe, is cared for. That's why we give tzedakah. That's why we make sure that Jews are provided for throughout the world. And therefore, Israel advocacy is our form of not really charity, but a concern for the welfare of every single Jew in the world, especially in the land of Israel. We know that there are many, many voices in the world today. And we know that this is not something new. When Moses first sent an expedition to scout out the land, 10 out of 12 spies came back with a negative report. And so it's not surprising that today the majority of the world is critical of Israel. That has been said, that was set into motion from the very first time that the history of the Jews was associated with the land of Israel, with the spies going ahead of the nation while we were still traveling in the desert. But we know from the story of Joshua and Caleb, the two spies who spoke up and said, Tovah haaretz ma'od ma'od, that the land is truly good, that their names are recorded for all of posterity, and the names of the other 10 spies have been consigned to the trash heap of history, never to be heard from again. And yet the families of Joshua and Caleb, those who spoke up against conventional wisdom, against that which was popular, against which the crowds were clamoring around, their names and their families are remembered for all of posterity. There is a concept in Judaism of bitachon, where we have to place our trust in God. And God will provide, God will take care of everything. There are different times in Jewish history when the idea of bitachon has greater prominence, and there are times in Jewish history when bitachon has lower prominence. I have to always have faith that God will take care of the Jewish people, and I sincerely believe that no matter what I do in life, and that no matter what my fellow Jew does, it's ultimately up to the Ribono Shel Olam, up to the master of the heavens and the earth, to decide how Israel will fare and how our people will fare in the world. And that's why prayer and an attempt to connect to the Almighty is so important in any effort that we have for Israel. But there are times in Jewish history when the Jew is called upon to have more than mere bitachon, mere just trust in God. When there is no other option for the Jew, when the Jew is living behind ghetto walls and does not have a voice, does not have the ability to go out into the world and make his or her voice heard, then there is no other resort than bitachon. But there's another term in Jewish theology and philosophy called ishtadlut, which is take the initiative. And to take the initiative has to be the yin for the yang of bitachon. If one is going to have trust in God, it can only be when I have done all that I possibly can do to make sure that God is providing. It's like the famous story of the guy who was being saved from the flood. I can't trust that God will save me if the helicopter comes down and I don't grab hold of the ladder. That's what is meant by hishtadlut. It is incumbent upon all of us to be a part of the effort to make sure that Israel is strong, that Israel is secure, and that Israel will survive into the next generation and will thrive. There is also the moral imperative of being nosei ba'ol chavero. In Jewish thought, there is a principle, one of the 48 ways of acquiring Torah wisdom is to bear the burden of your brother. And we have a precedent specifically as it refers to the land of Israel, because at the end of the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, there was a group of Jews who asked Moses permission to not settle into the land of Israel proper. They said, we'd like to remain on the Transjordan, on the other side, on the eastern side of the Jordan River. And Moses' words of response to them should reverberate into our ears in every single generation. And he said to the tribe of Gad and the tribe of Reuven, he said, Ha'achechem yavo'u lamilchama ve'atem teshevu. Shall your brethren go out to war, and you shall just sit here? We have Israelis today that are placing their lives on the line every single day. Young adults who are my children's age are members of the IDF. My children are not members of the IDF. How can I stay home and wait for someone else to fight and endanger their lives for the sake of the state of Israel and the people of Israel, and I sit home and do nothing? That is, for me, the most strong moral imperative, to be able to do whatever I can from afar in some small, insignificant, but nonetheless some way, to be able to join together with the effort that is taking place in Israel, so that even though my children are not there and I am not there, I feel that sense of moral responsibility. So that's all for the sake of the present. For the sake of the past, we owe it to the generation of survivors who came to Israel to make a better life for themselves. We owe it to those who fell in the Shoah, who always had in their dreams and on their lips the desire to return to Zion, and tragically just passed away, perished, just a few short years before the founding of the state. We owe it to those people to make sure that Israel remains safe, secure, and strong. And certainly we owe it to those people who have fallen in battle, the tens of thousands of Jews who fought from the early period, from 1948 and onwards, to this very day when we see victims of terror. We owe it to their memory to make sure that their memory is preserved, and that we fight against those who would castigate them on the world stage and belittle the value of their lives. That's for the sake of the past. And finally, for the sake of the future. This past summer, there was a delegation of rabbis who went from all over North America to Washington, D.C. About 250 rabbis and thousands of U.S. citizens went to protest the Iran deal that President Obama was so strong in endorsing and pushing through Congress. And by the time we got there with a group of demonstrators, we already knew that he had the sufficient votes and that there was nothing to be substantively accomplished by going to protest, by going to demonstrate. So why did we go? The reason we went is because Judaism looks from a very wide angle lens it takes a panoramic view of Jewish history. I know that when my children are older, and I'm going to be facing my grandchildren and putting them on my knee and telling them stories about what life was like in the 2010s, right, which will be the ancient era for them, I'll be able to say that we lived through a very crucial period in Jewish history for the state of Israel. So what did you do, Zaidi? What did you do, Grandpa? What did you do, Papa, during that very crucial period? Did you study Torah? Yes. Did you pray? Yes. But what did you really do for the state of Israel? Each one of us has that responsibility to have an answer that we can provide to our children and grandchildren in the future. We are living through a very important period in history. It may not seem that way right now because you never understand that you're living history until you look back upon it in the past. But for the sake of our future, we need to be able to provide an answer to our children and grandchildren. Where was I and what was I doing when the state of Israel was the subject of BDS, when we were constantly being beaten back in the United Nations, when we were called all different kinds of accusations, when we were the pariah country throughout the entire world? Where was my voice heard? And that's the reason why I think for all of those, for our past, our present, and our future, that we have a moral imperative to continue our very important work at Israel Advocacy and continue to make our voices heard.
Several minutes before the panels was going to convene, get ready, come down here, I got a text from Dr. Charles McVitie that his plane had been delayed and he only got off the plane a few moments before 5, so he could not be here. I turned to Donna and I said, "You're on the program." And I think sometimes we in the Jewish community don't realize how hard it is for Christian Zionists in their communities, how in their own denominations they have to carry the fight. And sometimes we don't recognize the great good that they are doing in Israel for us. When those flights keep coming during intifadas, and you go on the plane as I have, 75% Christian Zionists coming. And there's always a good chance that Donna or her daughter will be somewhere on that plane. So from Donna, you're not going to hear a speech, you'll hear it from the heart.
Thanks, Greg. Well, I've been here all day and hearing about is the goodness of Israel being hijacked. I just got hijacked myself. So I do have a lot to say from my heart, but not prepared. And like, the question is there a moral obligation? My Jewish response to that, well, why isn't there a moral obligation? A question to a question. We have every reason as Christian Zionists to support Israel from a biblical standpoint, from the Hebrew texts and the New Testament. God tells us what we are to do. And just as the Rabbi said, you want to leave this world a better place, and that's what I see in the Jewish community here. That is the very goodness that I want to tell everyone else about. And from a Christian perspective, to love one another. So we owe it to one another to be each other's brother, and we watch for one another. We watch each other's back. And from a political perspective, you heard about, and the legal, you just heard upstairs, Israel has the legal land title deed that most people don't even know about. Many in the Jewish community don't know about. And our message is to tell as many people as who will listen about whether your perspective is biblical or not, political or not. Israel's a democracy. Just look at the goodness. There's 1.7 million Arab Israelis who enjoy full citizenship. And when you put kids on campus to talk to kids in Arabic, and they're there, the word swap people come, and they talk in Arabic, these kids on campuses don't even know there is such a thing as an Arab Israeli, let alone that there's 1.7 million of them enjoying citizenship And then I go to SodaStream. So they're BDS, you see all of this, these lies that are perpetuated, and you want to uncover that and let the world know that this is wrong. So at SodaStream, I had an interview I requested Palestinian Arabs who could speak reasonable English, who didn't mind having their faces and their names on TV. And I got more than enough to say, listen, life is good. We are a family here. We choose to work together downstairs or in the plant. We socialize together. We get good pay, we get benefits. Life is good. I said, what would you like to say to the boycotters of the world? And they said, stay out of it. The nations and politics need to stay out of it because we are a family here and life is good. One man for the first time could buy a car and make the monthly payments. What happens to the ones who are left behind at Amal Adumim? There are over 500 Palestinian Arab workers who are without work. So whatever we know to be true, scripturally, on the ground facts, it's our obligation to share that information and share it as broadly as we can. That's why we're on TV now, not because we can afford to be. It's because we've been around for 35 years, and some people still don't know who we are. So it's important that they know they're Christians. And when we go to Israel for the Jerusalem March, during the Second Intifada, Jews were not going. 50% of the Jews were not going. Most likely they were coming out of Toronto in Canada. But they weren't coming, but we were. And that changed the attitudes of the Israelis on the ground, because they saw that we weren't just fair weather friends. We were there when bombings were happening in your buses, in your streets, in your pizza parlors. And we'd go there, and there'd be 5,000 Christians representing about 80 or more nations would go up. We were single-minded in our support for you, for Israel. And we have to do that also in our own communities, wherever we are. When Europe, with the EU, European Union, EU, wanted to have all Israeli products labeled, we had a delegation of at least 30 of our directors from Europe go to the EU to stand for Israel, to say that this is wrong. And if we weren't effective right at that moment, at that day, we went back to our countries and we persisted with the parliamentarians and the governments there. When Durban was happening, we took out full-page ads against it. So we have a voice. We're in media and news. We have petitions. We walk for Israel. We are in the Jerusalem March, which is the largest solidarity march every year in Jerusalem. And even though we get criticism within our own groups, and we're fighting in the churches for them to get them to pay attention, because we have replacement theology. I come out of the United Church, and my parents and my grandparents and their parents would be very upset to know what the UCC has done here, to add divestment now to sanctions. So I've got that video, I'm going to show it to them. But it's important that we work together, and that's why for 20 years I've been coming to these meetings like this, because it only took one trip from me in 1996, that's all it took. And I volunteer my time full-time and overtime because it's important. Because God told me it was important, I could see it with my own eyes. So, yes, we're with you, and we love you. And we're trying to get a greater groundswell of people who understand what I do.
Thank you, Donna. We're going to be very cognizant of the time, because the panel that follows this one is of critical importance, and that is the Yazidi panel. And I want everyone to have a lot of time to be able to hear the message of a community today that is facing genocide. So I really will ask everyone at exact moment we will finish and give a chance and opportunity to those that follow us. Now, I've heard a great deal about Adrienne Gold, but I've never had the opportunity of hearing a presentation. So I look forward to the next few moments.
So it's an honor to sit with the three of you. I'm going to speak to you briefly, not just as a Orthodox Jewish woman, but also as a mother, a wife, and a feminist, which is not oxymoronic. When I saw this question, the first thing that came to me was that the rabbi would cover the moral obligations vis-a-vis text. But it occurred to me that Rav Kook, the first chief rabbi of Israel, said an incredible thing. He said that love happens in concentric circles, that the first circle is an internal circle, a sense of love for the self that's solid, a sense of understanding that you were created in God's image and that you have a right to be here, no matter who you are. The second circle surrounding that is your family. Your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your grandparents, and indeed, if you're a Jew, that would include the entire Jewish people, and by extension, the state of Israel as well. Then the third level of that is all human beings, no matter what race or religion, no matter what color, no matter what identity, that we have an obligation to extend those concentric circles to all of those people, and beyond that, every single animal and every swarming ant on the ground. What's the significance of that? Well, what Rav Kook said was, he said that your success in the outer layers is going to be directly impacted by your inner level. And it's for that reason, here at the Village Shul for the last decade, I have been taking up to three trips a year to Israel, and I bring women. Now, before the Jewish Renaissance Project, the organization that I do these trips for, we here at the Village Shul took women's missions, the rabbi and the rebbitzin and myself and other leaders, in order for people to understand that once you step on the land, something fundamentally changes. This is not something you can explain. It's not something a brochure will ever help you cognate. But I can tell you, from having taken, at this point, thousands of women to Israel, that there is something about being in the eye of the universe, regardless of what faith system you belong to, where you recognize that something profound is happening there. And the thing that you need to understand is, as it goes there, as it will affect all of us. Israel might be an inner concentric circle for us, but as Jews, we have an obligation to the rest of the world as well. This is a statement that many people find troublesome. If something goes wrong, somehow it's a Jew's fault. But you know what? It is. And our ultimate moral obligation is to understand two things. First of all, as it says in Pirkei Avot, it is not incumbent upon us to complete the task, nor are you free to refrain from beginning it. Where there's much effort, there is much reward. Now, this was originally meant to discuss spirituality and your growth in your learning in Torah. But I think it's a fair assumption to say that we live in a time where we become quickly frustrated when we don't see immediate responses for our efforts. Oh, I told the kid yesterday, and I told him the day before, and I told him the day before that, and they're still not doing it. The role of a parent, the role of a Jew, the role of a human being is to plant seeds. And while we may not necessarily reap that harvest in our lifetime, we may not refrain from doing what's right. When Moshe came out of the palace in Egypt, and he looked around, and he saw that a taskmaster was beating a Hebrew slave, it says a version of the following: he looked left and right, and he saw there was no man, and so he was the man, and so he acted. The question one has to ask themselves is, what was he looking around for? Was he looking around to see if anyone was going to catch him, doing something that he wasn't supposed to do? No, but the answer is that his bone marrow that was nursed by his mother understood that when you see something, first you look to see if there is a more appropriate human being who can fix it faster, and if there isn't, you must step up. Something interesting happened at my house 2 weeks ago. I had guests for Shabbat, and I said to the wife of one of the women who was there, are you going to arrange for your sons to go on birthright? And she said, oh, I know you go many times a year, and I know you're really comfortable there, and I'm proud to be Jewish. But the truth is, she said, I'm terrified. I'm terrified to send my children to a place that's dangerous like that. And I stood there. And she said, now I don't want you to think that I'm an over-functioning mother, God forbid. I'm not in my kids' faces, she said 10 days ago. As a matter of fact, my son blank will be going to university in Brussels next year. It really happened. Hashgacha practice, HP moments, odd or God moments like that happen here in Chutz La'aretz. But when you go to the land, they happen every block. And they happen to you whether you're a Jew, or a Muslim, or a Christian. And God is watching us very closely there. And we have an obligation not just to ourselves, but to all of the outer concentric circles, because that's why a Jew was created. To repair the world, to work on their character, and to bring light. And you see, we are so caught up with our own personal needs and demands that we have forgotten our role in the world. And that's our role. Almost 3 years ago, I had 48 women booked to come with me to Israel. The war started. 35 of them canceled on the Friday afternoon before we were meant to leave on the Sunday. I went with 10 women. When we got there, we joined 200 other women from around the world. And a woman from South America told me about a famous quote. It's an American poet named Ambrose Redmoon, and he says, "Courage is not the absence of fear. Rather, courage is the decision that something is more important than your fear." Fear and a desire to see the results of our efforts right away frees us. They make us not do what we should do. They make us not speak up when our coworkers say ignorant and ridiculous things because we don't want to rock the boat. They make us blitz out in front of Netflix for 4 hours instead of learning how we can step up in the world. People take extraordinarily expensive vacations from life. They take them every day, and they take them literally. It's very nice to lie on a beach somewhere, but you can do it in Eilat. It's very, very nice to go to South Beach in Miami, but you can do it even better in Tel Aviv. It's very, very nice to go to any of the Central American countries and watch the birds. But you can go to the bird sanctuaries too in Israel. We have to put our courage and our money and our hearts where they belong. That's why you're here. I've raised 2 beautiful young men, 20 now and 24. I remember when they were young, they used to ask me, what's the meaning of life? That was immediately after they said, I didn't ask to be born and not into this family. And the one thing I couldn't answer them until I came to the village shul and started to study 16 years ago was why we're here. And each and every one of us know why we're here. We're here to do what a Jew is supposed to do, or a Christian is supposed to do, or a Muslim is supposed to do, or a Hindu is supposed to do. I have the privilege of working with a family here at the Village Shul who have been running this building for close to 20 years, and they are devout Hindus. I have more in common with them than I do with the majority of deeply secular, unaffiliated Jews. The fundamental difference is not necessarily how you describe God, but whether you think you're him, her, it, yourself. Outward focus is the purpose of being alive. It's the purpose and the mandate of the Village Shul. 8 years ago, I took a woman on one of these trips. She came to Toronto from Morocco when she was 19 years old. She got off the plane and fell on her hands and knees on the tarmac and kissed the ground. I said, we're still in the airport. Ew, it's not exactly. And she said, you don't understand how I was raised. You don't understand what it meant to be one of 3 Jewish families in an Arab village in Morocco. You don't understand that my grandmother and my great-grandmother never dreamed there would be a state of Israel, let alone that I would be here. The reason that the Jewish Women's Renaissance Project takes women to Israel is fourfold. Number one, because they believe that if you change a young boy or a young girl, then you change a young boy or a young girl. That's birthright. But if you impact a mother, you can change a family. And if you change a family, you can change a community. And if you change a community, you can change the world. That's number one. Women have tremendous capacity to change this world. Gentlemen, it's difficult when the wife goes away for 10 days on a free trip. Order pizza for 10 days and kick her out the door. Just like my job is to shove my husband out of bed in the morning so he can get to Minion on time, his job is to ensure I do my part. Second of all, we want to understand that women who spend their time in a state of nurturing have an inherent understanding of love. Israel is about love, and it is our job to love all of us the way God loves us. Thanks.
Thank you very, very much. You didn't disappoint. However, I think we can have maybe one single question. Harry, Renee, you have a question? No, you just want to raise your hand. Okay. Anybody else? One question. If not, I'm going to... Oh, there is a question. No, I'm not going to speak today. No. 1 minute, 1 minute. Well, 1 minute. Okay, quickly, 60 seconds. I thought our last speaker was fascinating. I would take one issue with her, and that was her observation as to where Moses was turning around and looking right and left. I think he was looking right and left to see if there was anyone from Peace Now there, from any NGO, someone who was going to blame him. And I believe that that today is one of the greatest problems that we face. That's my 30 seconds. My little plug now is that working with Christians United for Israel, some of you have seen, some of you will have the opportunity. May 15th, we're having, together with Hasbara, a Yom Ha'atzmaut, Christian celebrating Yom Ha'atzmaut at Canada Christian College. We expect several thousand people, and you get to see how Christians like Donna, who love Israel and we've got 100,000 members across the country. Not all will be there, but thousands will be there. You'll have an opportunity. I know Joe's coming. You have an opportunity to really, really enjoy. I want to once really thank you. I want to thank you, Rabbi. I know that you're out every moment speaking somewhere. Donna, the fact that you instantly said yes instead of no, I'm going to remember that always. And to you, I want to say thank you very much. It was a delight for the first time to hear you speak. Thank you. Next program is here, Yazidis. And please pay attention. This is a wonderful group of people who desperately need our help.